Jaishil for asking me to present my experience in handling Pentacam in the evaluation for laser refractive corneal surgery. I am basically a vitreoretinal surgeon and I have a special interest in refractive surgery. I have been in refractive surgery for the last 15 years and I have been using a Pentacam for the last 8 years. So I don't have any financial interest. I think Dr. Jaishil has made and Dr. Gurjeet has made all my talk quite easy because they have covered all these basic principles. So let me just skip all these. And the terminologies Dr. Gurjeet used are more or less applicable to the Pentacam also. The way we analyze stuff applies to Pentacam also. So we all know that the ablative corneal surgery is basically a destructive surgery. We are destructing a part of the cornea. So we have to know where and how much we can destroy the cornea. God has given us some reserves, so we should be within those reserves. So the Pentacam, I have been using it to say yes or no in a clear-cut case. Not only that, it also gives me the confidence of saying yes in a doubtful case and also a firm no when I feel the odds are too much against. Why Pentacam? I think Dr. Jaishil has already told this. I'll skip this. Initially, when we bought Pentacam, ours was one of the first Pentacams that came into India. So we were the amount of information the Pentacam gave us was really overwhelming. So we didn't know how exactly to approach. We didn't have anybody to guide us. So we started using the Pentacam to simplify the way we handle the scans. So I usually go by the 4-stage approach. First I look at the vital statistics. The Pentacam gives an overview of all the basic parameters. Then the heart of any of these systems is the elevation maps and the concept of the best fit sphere, which Jaishil has already very elegantly explained. I hope, because that is the basis, I hope you are all very, very familiar and very, very sure what exactly this means. And the another unique feature of Pentacam is getting a pachymetry map as also a pachymetry progression map, progression charts. Then the newer Pentacam also gives something called as a Bellin-Ambrose, a very ingenious way of enhancing the presentation of borderline ectatic cases. So I'll go, before I actually handle, I thought instead of going to so much of theory, I thought I'll go with actual case scenarios. But before I go to the case scenarios, I thought I'll discuss these 4 issues, the way I approach, and I'm sure you can also get a few points the way we have simplified the usage of a Pentacam. So basically we look at, this is how a Pentacam, one of the Pentacam printouts would look at when it comes to your hand. And the first thing we look at is, of course, the patient, whether we are dealing with the right patient, the right eye, and the right examination, because we do serial examination, make sure that the examination that we are seeing is the correct one. Then the Pentacam also gives certain parameters like the quality of the scan, how good the scan was, that's where it is. Then it also gives you the keratometry readings, the simulated keratometry readings, and we make sure that they match the keratometry readings that we have on our either manual or autokeratometer. Then you also look at the Q values. Q value is basically a measure of the asphericity of the cornea. Okay, so this gives both the anterior and the posterior surface measurements. The third thing is gives us an overview of the pachymetry, the corneal thickness. It gives 3 particular values. One is at the center of the pupil, one is at the apex of the cornea, and the last one is at the thinnest which is available. So thinnest on that particular tested cornea. So if they are nearly equal to each other, not very far away from each other, and if the decentrations are not very far from each other, then probably it's a safe situation. So the next level is next stage in the evaluation of the map is the elevation maps of the best fit sphere. I think Dr. Jaishil and Dr. Gurjeet has covered this in detail. I don't want to make a repetition of that, but very important, we have to understand the concept of the elevation map and the best fit sphere. Just one recapitulation here. The cornea which is in front of the best fit sphere will be in hot colors, red, yellow and green, and the corneas that are behind the best fit spheres will be in cool colors like the blues and the purples. Then the Bellin has given us some numerical way of analyzing which one we need to suspect. Usually we take an 8 mm BFS. With that, these are the parameters. I think Dr. Jaishil and Gurjeet have already shown this. But what I would like to stress here is that these readings should be either in the central or paracentral areas. If you have a plus 15 or plus 20 at these areas, it usually doesn't mean anything. Then also what Dr. Gurjeet said about the island pattern, extremely important. Be very sure of this particular. What's an island pattern? If you have a high elevation here and adjoining area with a lower elevation, this is an island pattern. Okay, this is very important. I want you to carry this home. Island pattern, very important. Then the next thing is what is unique amongst all the imaging systems is the corneal progression map. Tachymetry maps are there in all of these instruments. But the progression map is if you take from the center concentric rings and we take the corneal thickness values of all this on a concentric ring and average them and present it as a chart, okay, from 2 millimeters, 4 millimeters, 6 millimeters, 8 millimeters from the center. This is the corneal thickness on the y-axis. This is the tested area, tested cornea. If this tested cornea more or less conforms to the what is expected in the for that particular thickness from the center to the periphery, the way the corneal thickness progresses, this is an extremely important part of the pentacam presentation. So this is a normal pentacam tachymetry progression, and this is how a keratoconic cornea would look. You can see a thin cornea in the center. It is going to a normal thickness cornea in the periphery, and in the mid-peripheral area it is showing a unexpected deviation from what is expected normal. I hope you are very clear in this. We'll try to make, since it's a small audience, we'll try to make it very interactive. If somebody has a doubt, 1 second, I'll try to clear that. Okay, will not take too much of time because I have very little time. Then the fourth important stage is the Bellin-Ambrosio display. Bellin-Ambrosio is a very ingenious way. He has the concept has come up. We have to understand the concept of best fit sphere. Then from the thinnest point on the cornea, 3.5 millimeter zone, whatever the elevation details are there, they are deleted in calculating the best fit sphere. Okay, so what's happening is here the best fit sphere will become a little bit flatter. So I think it was around 7. I don't see the number there. It's around 7.65 in the first float, and it's come down to 7.75. So what is happening here is the ectatic area is looking a little bit more obvious. So a subtle ectasia will be looking more obvious in a Bellin-Ambrosio type of a display. So the difference map is also given. So based on these 4 stages, we will try to analyze a few cases. I'll start my cases. Dr. Jaishil, if I'm crossing the time, you can tell me, I'll cut short. Okay, I have about 6 to 7 cases, but I think we cannot discuss all of them. So this is one of the cases. Then first thing we'll look at the vital statistics. We'll look at the patient Then you look at the patient personal details. Then you look at the quality of the scan. It should be okay. If it's not okay, then probably you should not be considering this particular map at all. And second thing is look at the corneal curvature. They seem to be okay in this particular case. Then we come and look at usually look at the corneal front curvatures. Then you come and look at the pachymetry. Again, this looks quite okay to me. And then we look at the pachymetry progression. This also looks okay. This is quite parallel with the expected normal. Then we look at the Bellin-Ambrosio. What do you think? What do you think about this case? Should we go ahead and do LASIK or should we? So this is a good case for a totally no nonsense case. So this is how a case should look, but it doesn't always happen like this. We get other types of cases also. So this is the second case, where again we see that the cornea is a little bit on the flatter side, around 8 millimeter. I'm more familiar with the millimeter type of a K readings than the cornea, but look at the corneal thickness. Corneal thickness is only around 494. Okay. Then we look at the elevation maps. The anterior elevation looks good, the posterior elevation looks good, symmetrical, no island pattern. It's symmetrical, and the tangential curvature maps also shows a symmetrical bow tie. The distribution of the pachymetry also looks to be okay, and the Bellin-Ambrosio shows that it's perfectly fine. So now what we have a thin cornea, but it's a normal cornea. It's only thinly built. So again, this is good for LASIK, but probably we shouldn't be raising a flap. We should be doing a surface ablation. So this helps us to understand the concept. When we look into another case, again, we have a cornea which is slightly toric. It's around 7.8 and 7.2. We have an astigmatism for 4 diopters. This was matching with the manifest refraction of the patient. Corneal thickness is around 550. So you again see a a nice bow tie pattern, a saddle pattern or a saddle pattern on the elevation, a good bow tie, slight asymmetry towards the top, corneal thickness the progression seems to be okay. Up till 7 millimeters, it's almost parallel. Beyond 7, usually we consider between 6 and 7 millimeters. If it's progressing well, that's quite good enough. So in this case, again, LASIK can be done. But what do we understand? Because of the high toric cornea, mechanical microkeratome, we need to be sure of the flap complications. And probably we need to pay extra attention because it's a toric cornea. For the head posture needs to be correctly aligned. So these are the 3 cases for good for LASIK. Let's look at this map. Again, see, you can see a data gap here. So it's not a very good scan. Then the corneas look to be reasonably okay. The front curvatures are reasonably okay. But look at the corneal thickness. It's only around 469. But I also want you to appreciate that these 3 values. One is 469, one is 455, and one is 438. So within the central zone, there is a huge variation of around 30 microns, which is almost up to 8% of the total corneal thickness. So this is a warning sign here. So with each step, you start analyzing stuff. You start reinforcing what you already know, what you are going to see. When you look at the corneal progression maps, you see that there is a thin cornea and it's not going ahead with the expected progression for the corneal thickness. Then when you look at the Bellingham ratio, you can see that there is a huge central island with an ectasia. So this is not good for LASIK here. Shall I continue or should I stop? I have a couple. Will you stop? Okay. I had a couple of more cases, but anyway, these were the doubtful cases. Anyway, I'm overshooting the time. Sorry about that. Then apart from these few situations, we can also use a pentacam for other uses. Like in ablative corneal surgeries, we can use it to find out the angle kappa. This is becoming more and more important, especially in hypermetropics. And now we're using this for even myopic eyes. How much of decentration we need to do when we do an ablation. So this pentacam can give us a good idea. The second thing is you must have seen that all my slides said oculizer. Oculizer is nothing but a pentacam, but it comes on a wavelight platform, which has got an OcuLink. So we can use these ablation elevation patterns to actually generate a ablation profile. Then it's also useful, like what for retreatment of assessing the flaps, and we can get a better estimate than the light based orb scan for the residual corneal thickness, and we can also look at the corneal opacities. And in non-ablative refractive surgeries, we can get the anterior chamber depth, internal anterior chamber depth for planning the phakic IOL. You can actually look at the angle. And but the only thing in pentacam is we cannot measure the white to white diameter. And the other important thing is, it's going to become more important, is the IOL power calculation post refractive surgery. We get something called as the true net powers. We get the EKT profiles. So we can use the Holiday formulas. So thank you so much. I'm sorry that I couldn't actually go through all my cases, but anyway, if somebody would like to discuss, I'm always available. These are my email IDs. You can always talk to me. Thank you.